The Boston Bruins are officially more than 25% through the regular season, with some injury issues on one hand, a tough schedule on the other, and an even-keeled attitude throughout it all. Let's talk about where the Bruins stand at this point in the season on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, November 28th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. The podcast is available on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, whatever else you use. I'm a Pocket Casts fan myself. You can also find the podcast on YouTube in video form and with some bonus content along the way there as well. You can find the podcast on Twitter, Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. I hope you all had a great long weekend. For those of you south of the border, of course, those of us up here in Canada, just a regular weekend with the loss of Canada at the World Cup as well, which was a bit of a bummer. But this is a hockey podcast, and that's what we're talking about here today. The weekend was kicked off by a thrilling overtime victory over the Carolina Hurricanes on Friday. I talked about that directly after the game. And there was some cause for concern after that one, as most notably, Linus Ullmark was forced to leave the game after a collision with Connor Clifton in front of the net. On Saturday, the Bruins gathered for practice, and head coach Jim Montgomery said there was no bad news to report, which by definition is good, but how quickly Ullmark and some others are going to be back, they just don't know quite yet. Montgomery said Ullmark is feeling better. That was of Saturday, so that's a good sign. Craig Smith also left the win over Carolina with an upper body injury. He is listed as day-to-day. Trent Frederick suffered an upper body injury in Boston's win over Tampa last week. He skated on his own after Saturday's practice, so he's progressing a bit. And also of note, Derek Forbort, who has missed the past 11 games after suffering a right middle finger injury that required surgery, is getting close, according to Jim Montgomery. And he said he would be shocked if Forbort isn't back by a game on Saturday against the Colorado Avalanche at TD Garden. Luckily, kind of for the Bruins, maybe not so much for us, they only have 2 games this week. One tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then they're off again till that Saturday game, giving the players 3 days of rest between games over the weekend, and then another 3 days of rest after the game tomorrow night. So it's kind of a good quote-unquote time to be injured because there's only those couple games. Maybe Ullmark will miss one. No news as of yet in regards to the recall of Keith Kincaid from Providence. We'll see here on Monday if he's at practice, and I would assume that Linus Ullmark will get the start tomorrow night against the Lightning, and then we'll see from there who his backup is and when Ullmark might be back in the lineup. So that's the good news when it comes to Ullmark. Certainly, he's been arguably Boston's most valuable player here in the early going, a legit Vezina trophy contender, and possibly the favorite at this point. He leads the league in wins, 13, 1-0. He leads starting goalies in save percentage. Anybody at least 10 starts, he has a 935 save percentage. Alexander Georgiev and Ilya Sorokin at 933. And his goals against average, which I'm not a huge fan of that stat, but still he leads all NHL goalies in that regard as well, with the mark of 2. That's with the minimum of 5 starts. So on the one hand, they certainly need him back in the lineup as soon as possible. They also kind of need Jeremy Swayman to find his game. He hasn't been particularly stellar to begin the season, although he did stop all 6 shots he faced in the relief win over the Hurricanes. He's now 4-2, but with an 890 save percentage. So it would be good, on one hand, to be able to give Ullmark some rest here and to get Jeremy Swayman up to the level that we expect of him moving forward. As good as Ullmark has been, you want Swayman getting some action and kind of spotting Ullmark so that he is fresh for when the games matter most in the 2023 part of the schedule. Again, we're only 25% of the way through the season, a bit over that actually, 21 games played out of 82. And we're going to talk about where the Bruins stand here at the quarter mark in a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by SimpliSafe. The holiday season is officially upon us, and property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike nationally around this time of year. That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. In an emergency, they have 24/7 professional monitoring agents that use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system we recommend. 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL today. It's their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. All right, so through 21 games, the Boston Bruins are tied for the league lead in points with 36, level with the New Jersey Devils, 3 ahead of the Vegas Golden Knights, 5 ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs. When it comes to point percentage, however, our Bruins are firmly in first with a mark of 857. They've played 1 fewer game than those red-hot New Jersey Devils. Their regulation wins, second behind the New Jersey Devils. Regulation and overtime wins, also second behind the Devils. The Bruins still first in the NHL when it comes to goals per game at 4. And they are now second when it comes to goals allowed per game, as the New Jersey Devils are allowing 2.18. Boston's at 2.24. The Power play's humming along. Tied for second in the NHL, 29.3, with the Edmonton Oilers, Colorado Avalanche first at 33.8, and the penalty kill still second in the NHL behind San Jose. Boston's at 84.3, San Jose's at 90.3. But here's the thing. The Bruins have really struggled on the power play since Derek Forbort got injured. Prior to his injury, so he was injured in a game on the 1st of November. Prior to that injury, the Bruins penalty kill had a 93.9% success rate. That was through the first 9 games of the season. Beginning on November 1st, that mark has dipped significantly. So today, the 28th, we kick it back to the 1st of November. The Bruins penalty kill over that time is ranked 13th in the NHL with a 78% success rate. So they're really missing Derek Forbort, especially on the penalty kill. A lot of people will kind of poo-poo, for a better term, his impact on the team, but there's really no denying how valuable he's been on the penalty kill, and the Bruins really do need him back in the lineup for that purpose. So yeah, they have taken a bit of a step back in the month of November, although they were 10-2, 3.83 goals per game, which is 4th. They're allowing 2.17 goals per game in November, which is ranked 3rd, and still an incredible team the Boston Bruins have been so far this season. Now, I've talked a lot about how this really tough stretch of games is now upon them, but as far as Brad Marchand is concerned, they're not approaching this stretch any differently. They've already played, Tampa, Florida, Carolina. They're 2-1 in those 3 games. Over the next 2 weeks, they'll play the Golden Knights twice, Colorado twice, and the Tampa Bay Lightning in there as well, with 1 game against Arizona. Marchand said a lot of people look at these teams, these games, and say they're statement games. But he doesn't necessarily agree with that. Any team can win on any night. You see it across the league all the time, where the last place team can beat the first place team. And, sometimes that happens. But whether it's a first place team, these games against the Golden Knights, or that game in Arizona, it's all about being prepared. He said it's about being consistent, being good, professional team, being ready to play. Each night is a statement about how they're going to be prepared. If they're learning from past mistakes, if they're maybe sleepy in the second or third, whatever it is, it's all an opportunity to continue to be better and to improve on their game. A fantastic mentality to take in the midst of an 82-game season and with an eye on the playoffs. There's no point in the season where you can get complacent for too long without paying for it. Any team can win on any given night. Maybe not the Anaheim Ducks, who last I checked were still without a regulation win. Actually, they have 1 now, I believe, which is pretty insane. But there's still that talent level across the league where you cannot, not be as prepared for the Vegas Golden Knights as you are for the Arizona Coyotes, and vice versa. You always have to have that mentality where you are bringing it 60 minutes a night and not suffering from too many lapses, building bad habits that could come back and bite you later on when the games matter most. So right now, the Bruins, of course, 12-0-0 at home. They've only played 9 games away. They're 6-3 in those 3 games. Their 3 losses coming against Ottawa, Toronto, and Florida. And they will be going on the road here for some tough ones coming up next week. But we'll tee up what's ahead on the schedule this week here in a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, hockey, soccer, esports, and more. They are the number one spot and the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix, whether it's player or game props for individual matchups or futures like betting on Stanley Cup or NHL awards. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Please do subscribe on your favorite podcast app, on YouTube, and be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast next for a viewpoint from around the world of sports. Quick word about Boston's underlying stats at the moment. Let's look at where they rank in terms of all strengths. Shot attempt differential, they're 6th right now with a 52.9 positive mark. Expected goals, they're 2nd, 56.93. High danger shot attempts, they rank 3rd in the NHL. And they are also sitting 4th when it comes to shooting percentage and 2nd when it comes to save percentage. I've talked before about PDO, how those numbers could fall back a bit at some point. And if Linus Ullmark is going to miss any length of time, it's going to be tough for them to keep up that team mark unless our boy Jeremy Swayman can really step up and steal some of these games against Tampa and then Colorado. Colorado does have some injury issues, which we'll talk about later on in the week. We'll do a bigger preview of the Tampa game on tomorrow's podcast, as well as update the Atlantic, or I think we'll kick it up to the Eastern Conference power rankings now, as we have a better picture of who's in and who's out in the playoffs, especially in the Atlantic division. We know that it's going to be incredibly tough for Buffalo, Ottawa to get back into contention. There's 6 teams over 500 in the Atlantic right now, and the wildcard race is going to be fascinating. Right now, Florida is on the outside looking in behind Detroit. So we'll talk about that on tomorrow's podcast for sure. All that to say, the Bruins have had a fantastic first quarter of the season, and they're not taking it for granted, it doesn't seem. Brad Marchand, a de facto leader in the room, talking about how you have to be prepared every night. There's no statement games per se. They don't see the game last week against Tampa as any different from a game a couple weeks ago against Chicago, Philadelphia, Vancouver, these teams that are further down in the standings. That's a great mentality to have, and that is the benefit of having such great leadership in the room. I should mention Boston's stat leaders at this point in the season. David Pastrnak offensively tops across the board. 14 goals in 21 games, 18 assists, 32 total points. Well ahead of Patrice Bergeron in goals, who is second with 9. David Krejci with 8. Hampus Lindholm, second on the team in assists with 14, followed by Brad Marchand and Pavel Zacha, each with 11. Patrice Bergeron with 19 points. Lindholm, 18. Krejci, Marchand, 17 apiece to round out the top 5 on the team. Pastrnak, 15 power play points. Brad Marchand, 12 of his 17 points have come on the power play. So it would be nice for him to get his 5-on-5 play up a bit more, as well as some shorthanded action as well. Pastrnak almost lapping the field when it comes to shots as well. He's got 106 shots on goal, almost 40 ahead of Patrice Bergeron and Jake DeBrusk, who have 68 apiece. How does Pastrnak stack up against the competition league-wide? Well, he's tied for third in total points. He's got 32, level with Leon Draisaitl and Erik Karlsson. And behind Jason Robertson's 35, Connor McDavid with 36. His 14 goals behind Jason Robertson, who leads the NHL with 18. Bo Horvat, 17. Connor McDavid, 16. Bo Horvat, keep an eye on that name, as it could be a player that the Bruins target later on this season on the trade market. He would be a fantastic, with all the uncertainty surrounding Bergeron, Krejci moving forward, Bo Horvat would be probably one of the best options down the middle for the Boston Bruins. He's an unrestricted free agent this coming summer, and Vancouver might not be able to keep their captain. It'd be great to add him down the middle, as well as add that leadership to the room. So that's where the Bruins stand at the quarter mark, my friends. Excited about what's coming next for this team, beginning with tomorrow night's game against the Lightning, which we'll preview on tomorrow's podcast and update the Eastern Conference power rankings. Hope you all had a great holiday weekend. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.